Thanks, Gerard Verdeer. Thank you, ladies and gents. It's a privilege to be here. So this, Gerard designed this. I hope I can live up to it, but let's see. So I must take my glasses off. Okay, does it look better? All right. So Albert Einstein says, in the middle of every difficulty lies an opportunity. So my theme for today is threats are opportunities. We've got a lot of threats. We can stick our head in the sand, or we can address those as opportunities and see how to benefit from them. So if you have a look at this, man, we don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenges. So sometimes you just have to man up. All right. For those who in the industry has heard of an F4 generation, F4 color variant, F4 split. How many of you guys have seen them? So if you want to know something, I'm an F4 of those two good people. That's my Opa Grootjie. So you can see some traits we pulled through in terms of height, but other degenerative traits such as the Jewish gene came through. I'm very stingy when it comes to money. Ask the ladies that work with me. Right, so threats are opportunities. How do we identify them? Where do we go forward? What are these threats? What are these opportunities? So I've tried to highlight on a few key ones for you today, that we can develop an ideas, vision, success plan, innovation, growth, and come up with a strategy to go forward. So at the moment, a lot of the information that we get looks like that. We have to try and streamline it, that it makes sense for our industry. And that's where WRSA plays a key role in streamlining that information and making sense out of it. Deciding when to attack a report, when to go to Parliament, what to discuss, what points to take, what connections to draw between things. So in terms of our industry threats, first one's obviously on the legislative challenges. We've got the NEMBA bill, revised top legislation, revised elephant norms and standards, draft leopard norms and standards, game meat strategy, draft white paper, and the rhino regulations roadshow, all for March this year. When I showed this to Migwet last week, she threatened to go on leave because that's what we're facing. Those are the legislative challenges that we have. And we need to understand when we're talking about draft norms and standards for leopards, you set precedents. There's certain things that impact on other species. And that's why in Parliament yesterday, we said, chaps, you're talking about lions. But you know, I'm registered as a captive breeding facility for golden wildebeest. To get rhino on my property, I had to register as a captive breeding facility. So what's going to happen to those species? You're making legislations to shut down captive breeding. You're legislatively depriving me of my assets. And that's what we need to address. And when we box, we've got to identify those threats and work out where the opportunities are for the industry. So when we talk about the draft white paper, it's now version 3, it's in the Parliament as we speak. So this slide for me makes sense from yesterday. We had a parliamentary panel speaking about lions, and I actually thought to skip it because we were running out of time. The difference between wild managed and captive bred lions, they didn't even know what the differences were. They thought we can just take captive bred lions and let them go. Where do you want to let them go to? Who's going to take them? The sense just isn't there. So while we're talking about lions, that's one of my other big threats that we see within the industry. Yes, lions are the #1 target. And we need to understand where this has come from. So some of us through FASA, through SUCO, we've been following this process for a while. I was in the Lion Colloquium in Parliament in 2018. Then that became the HLP report, which is just a report. It's not legislation. It can't be implemented. Then we got the draft policy position on the ecological sustainable use of elephant, lion, leopard, and rhino. WRSA answered that. We gave in our submissions. We answered the HLP report. Draft white paper on sustainable use, version 1, version 2. They're now busy with version 3. That's coming out. Each single step we've answered. Each single step we've sent out memos to members to say, fill in the jot forms. And what's very clever how the jot forms are structured. Although we represent 1,000 members, when I stand up and hand in a submission as WRSA, it counts as one submission only. So what we've gone and changed is we've issued the jot forms. That's why you get an email back to say, thank you for your submission. Because then you made an objection to that paper verbally on your own name. That's why the minister yesterday had to say, yes, for the first draft policy position, we got 9,500 submissions. 7,500 submissions with WRSA. and the SUCO members. That's what came through. Objecting to the process, which makes our life wonderful because then we can send a PIA application and say, excuse me, madam, you're making a decision. Can we see what you're basing it on? Where's your public participation? So when we send those things to you guys, please, you need to distribute it and you need to motivate people to answer it. We've done it we've even streamlined the second version that you just had to tick the boxes. You could just tick everything and then it gives you the answer for it and it pulls it all through to change it. So where we now sit, we've got a ministerial line task team. And again, we've identified the opportunity before it was a challenge. First thing we did, we got multiple stakeholders sitting in this room today, all to apply to be on that task team. WRSA recommended over 13 different capable individuals to be on that task team. You know how many were selected? Not one. Why? The objective is shutting down the industry. So now we can ring a PIA and say, excuse me, do you mind giving us the list of who was all nominated? Do you mind saying on what criteria these people were selected? Do you mind saying on what criteria you excluded these people? And you can't hide behind POPI because it's people that handed in their CV to serve on a national task team. Jy het jouself en jou informasie bereidwillig. Jy kan dit nie wegsteek nie. This is one of the icons that we've come a long way from FASA, if we take that back to 2016, when I was one of the first people to stand up for lions. And why? I've never owned a lion, I've never had a lion. But I've always said, that's the first domino. From that previous slide, you could see how we went from a lion colloquium, all of a sudden, to lion, elephant, leopard, rhino, all of a sudden to a draft white paper on the entire system. Where's your public participation process on all of those? How can you just jump? What's the movement? And that's why as an industry and as a SUCO collective, we'll keep standing behind this first domino. Yes, it's not pretty. Yes, it's not ideal. Yes, there are challenges. Let's not deny that. But if you let that precedent fall, we're going to face challenges that are going to be difficult going forward. Then finally, our last industry threat was briefly discussed by Gerard, is the public perception out there about shutting down the industry and from an international onslaught. We've got the UK Parliament's hunting and trophy import prohibition bill. SUCO is working immensely hard behind the scenes with that. We've already had meetings with UK parliamentarians discussing the things. When documents come out, we're immediately on top of it of where we are. Ladies and gents, as much as I'd like to take credit for everything, it's impossible to. There's exceptionally capable people in SUCO that are handling this and fighting it with WRSA and for WRSA and for the entire collective. US Fish and Wildlife are now trying to bring an elephant import ban on all live and trophies with their 4D ruling. We're already one step ahead. Last year, we had the US Fish and Wildlife delegation in the Eastern Cape, having a look at our Bontebok, having a look at our Cape Mountain zebra, seeing on the ground what is happening. We've now got direct channels of communication with them. What's happened this year? Bontebok trophies are going back to America. Finally, they're going back in. It's how you slowly break it down and win that war. We were at CITES, and this is the challenges that we sit with again. We always thought when Audrey and the previous predecessors of FASA, etc., spoke about CITES, I thought it was an event every 2 or 3 years. No, it's not. There's actually a lot of work done before CITES that I never even knew of. You've got plants committees, animals committees, standing committee meetings. And these are actually where the foregone decisions are made before we even get to CITES. And that in its own was also an eye-opener that I'll address for you. So we were at CITES, and we managed to have one windfall, which I think was great. We managed to get Namibia's white rhino population downlisted. Because we said to the people, ladies and gentlemen, if CITES is there to look after species, surely a nation that's coming to you and saying, we've grown the species, we've looked after it, we've taken the numbers this much, and we've increased it. Let them downlist. It's a success. The day CITES will be successful is the day all species are downlisted. That's a success of CITES. Whereas the current narrative is there is the uplisting of animals is a success. Why, absolutely not. This was another challenge that we started to learn quite nicely. I ended up becoming a photographic stalker of this poor lady. Why? because she was greeting and hugging every single West African country at CITES. Within 15 minutes prior to the leopard quota, which let me give you the background, the discussion was Kenya and Ethiopia. Ethiopia wanted to reduce their leopard quota from 500 or 150 to 20, and Kenya wanted to have their leopard quota completely scrapped. That was the proposal on the table. Within 15 minutes, she had caucused Senegal, Mali, Nigeria, all of them, to come up with a proposal to say, we want a total ban on all CITES exports of leopard. It was all of a sudden on the table. Where were we? While this meeting is taking place, you've got to be in two different halls at the same time. So they run committee 1 and committee 2. So if you go in there to CITES as an individual, you're already dead in the water before you even start. That's what makes SUCO so powerful, because we were a delegation of 8 South Africans that were there, 9 South Africans. Here you can see how we worked with our departments at CITES. We had strong meetings with them to say, hey, chaps, come on. This is what we have to fight. And when they couldn't raise certain points, we raised it from the floor for them. As an observer, you basically the last chance of saying something. And most of the times the chair actually even ignores you. What made CITES even better is for the first time, that's an entire international grouping of sustainable use-minded individuals from Canada, Sweden, Australia, all combining and working as one. We've now formed a united front and a network of communication between us. So that's how we're changing the structure. We can't go alone. We need to go together, and that's how we address it. When we made proposals, just on the WhatsApp group, young Christopher Palos made a proposal. Before we knew it, Dallas Safari Club, SCI, Wild Sheep Foundation, the pet traders, African communities, every single one of those were supporting their proposals and making it work. So industry opportunities, transformation. I think transformation is probably one of our biggest opportunities, but yet it's our greatest fear. It shouldn't be. Why? Because transformation is the government's Achilles heel. They do not have the skills on the ground to implement transformation correctly. And why can I say that? Why am I saying that? Is because they expect transformation to work by just giving land and saying, there, carry on. 20 years worth of skill takes you 20 years to learn. You can't just get it overnight. And that's where we can play a huge role as mentorship, as working together as the successes on the ground. Why? Because we are on the ground. So if there's opportunities for transformation, don't run from it. Don't be scared of it. Face it and say, I want to help you be a success. Because if you help transformation be a success, you automatically become a success. That's why we think it's so important. That's why we've signed an MOU with People and Parks to address the struggles that they face. There's over 100, I forget now, 182 is the figure that comes to mind. Farms that have received game donations through SANParks. You know how many are successful? Not one. Not one. So for the first time, we can come in and help. But then if we're serious about transformation, we need to mean it. We need to get involved. We're busy signing an MOU with SANParks as well. There's an urgent need for meaningful transformation and mentorship. Not window dressing, meaningful transformation. And that's our opportunity. Yeah, you can see where we signed last year, and what WRSA did differently is it was signed with all these organizations. Why? Because you need your local hunting organizations and international hunting organizations. Because who's going to utilize the commodities that are being produced? Who's going to ensure that they're exported? Is your taxidermies. You've got to make sure that you take and utilize the entire value chain going forward. Otherwise, what you're trying to achieve is just in little silos. Yeah, you can see the optimism and the excitement of signing that MOU. Second largest opportunity is research. Dr. Obram pointed out with Groen Sebenza that came from our acknowledgement of SWEP. It's nice to hear that Groen Sebenza has actually been around, but now we're hearing and we're seeing the benefit of it and understanding it. So the first version was in the Eastern Cape, second version in Limpopo, Astronomical results. Yesterday in Parliament, Mr. York, sorry, the lion industry only abuses their workers. They only employ one person per every lion farm. They don't pay their minimum wage, and there's no contribution. Sorry, shut it down. All of a sudden, we could show SWEP started to say, no, excuse me. The game ranching industry employs double the amount of any other livestock or agricultural activity with livestock. There's the value. Why? Because we did this. We did the research. If we hadn't done it, we wouldn't have it. So we had it on two different aspects, that we had it from the EWT report as well as the SWEP data. So the version 3 is being planned at the moment in negotiation with Matthew Child. The research that Dion Furstenberg did behind the scenes on rhino, astronomical data, huge data. And the best part is, it's actually come out, his publications come out before other scientific members who have now published exactly the same data. So now they can't even refute his work. That's positive. The work done by Dr. Paul Boyens yesterday in his lion research, astronomical. Why? Because you shut down the fiction with fact. And if we don't identify this as an opportunity and shut down the fiction with fact, we're in trouble. So there was a plea here today about Groensewenze. Take it seriously. If you want to be in this industry, take it seriously. Make a plan to get someone there to help do research in your area. Because if you've got research in your area, you can fight most challenges that come your way. Here you can see the report that was done on the captive bred lions that Dr. Paul Boyens spoke about yesterday. There he was mentioning about an F2 cubs being born. Fantastic research. There's the evidence. No one can refute it. Then finally, the last industry opportunity I say is time for growth. And I deliberately chose this buffalo because it's a soft boss buffalo. If we think we're an old industry, we're not. Our industry is still young. Our industry is 30 years old, if that. So when we talk about our first pandemic, we've just come through our first pandemic. What we see in the room today is the survivors of the first pandemic within the wildlife industry. Our first biggest challenge. That's who's come through. So game prices at the moment are sustainable. And I chose the word sustainable because I can make a living by producing meat, by the tourism, by the hunting. I don't have to rely just on exclusive game auction prices. I can be successful on the ground. And if you are sustainable, you've got a successful industry. And what Gerard always says, time has and always will reveal reality. We know it. The reference was earlier to the climate change point. So as WRSA over the last 2 years, we've cast the foundation. We've cast the foundation, but now we need your support to take these points forward. We've created Wildin, which is the tourism aspect. That's now with Dreams Hotel. We've created the WRSA Foundation to support and grow and help farmers on the ground. And thank you for Henry, who's agreed to help chair that and help push that to make sure it's a success. Conservation Kits, the Game Meat Academy, the online system, and also part of Suko SA. Those are all huge foundation blocks to give us strength that we can build WRSA going forward. Here you can see the benefit of Suko, standing united for the first time. And I just want to use this opportunity to actually thank Gerard, because the WRSA we see in front of us today and the WRSA that was there 2 or 3 years ago is a total different organization. And it's because of one man's dedication and one man's hard work to see it through, and the countless hours and time he offered up to make this industry a success. So the choice is yours. When you have breakfast, are you committed or involved? If you want to be involved, be the egg. If you want to be committed, be the bacon. Okay, I'm the bacon. Thank you, everyone. So remember, sometimes you just have to man up. Thank you.